Hello everyone, Brendan from Plumblebee here. And today we're going to be talking about gas control valves that you most likely have on your gas-fired water heater, tank-style water heater in your home. These are very common gas control valves that you're going to see most likely on one of your water heaters, your gas-fired water heaters. I'm not sure which one the oldest is here. Outside of this one, I know this is a newer model. It's more common, has been, I would say, over the last 10 years that you might see on a water heater. And here in Texas, water heaters only last typically 7, 8 to 12 years. So there's a good chance you might have this one on your actual water heater. But outside of that, if you have an older unit, you might find one of these types of gas control valves on your actual unit. So we're going to start off today just showing you how to light your actual water heater, how to light your pilot, and then be able to get your burner assembly kicked on if your pilot isn't lit. So we'll just start off with this older Delta valve. So we're going to set these over here off to the side, and then we'll start off with this Delta valve. So usually comes in a blue color. I actually don't see this one too often. It's usually one of the two other options that I see. But I've done plenty of water heaters, and I've seen plenty of water heaters have this actual valve on it. So how you would actually light this and get your pilot lit on your unit. First things first, you want to make sure obviously all your gas is connected to this unit. You might have a sediment trap, which is like a T, and then a little nipple and a cap at the bottom, and then you might have a gas flex yellow or silver in color or something like that. Chrome or something like that going into the top of that T. A lot of people, it just depends on where you are. Some people don't, or some states, cities, municipalities might not require an actual sediment trap. So you might just have the gas flex going straight into here. Or like a coupling and then like an adapter and then the gas flex tying straight into here. So first things first, obviously you want to make sure that your gas is actually on. So you'll have a valve somewhere upstream where you need to make sure that that actual valve is on, that is feeding gas into this gas control valve, which most likely it will be unless you turned it off for some reason or somebody turned it off for some reason. So I'll show you how to actually light this actual valve itself right here. So you have your different settings: hot, low, very hot. You got on and you got off, and then you have pilot. Also out of the bottom, I won't go too far into this because this is kind of geared towards, homeowners or people that just need to relight their water heaters. But you'll have some tubing that's going to come out of the bottom of this gas control valve. One for your pilot, one for your actual burner assembly, which will be a bigger tube right here. And you'll have like some wire or cable running from the ignition switch down in there as well. So don't worry too much about that. Most likely all that stuff's still connected. If it's not, obviously you have a bigger problem. But we're just going to show how to light this thing. So you need to make sure that this actual knob is turned to pilot. So you might not be able to see it very well, but there is a little arrow down in here, right here. You want to make sure your pilot is aligned with that arrow. And then what you'll do, this is the only way you can press this button in. This is the only way you can press this button in. You can't press it in if it's on the off or on the on. Can't do it while it's on off. It has to be on pilot right here. It's the only way you can press this button in. So what you'll do is you'll press this button in, and this right here is your ignition switch. So while looking through the sight glass of your burner assembly, there might be a door on the front, so you can take that little door off, and there'll be a little sight glass down in there. Heaters have had it for the longest time. You can look through that sight glass, hold this button right here for your pilot, and then hit your switch and look through that sight glass. And at some point, you might take a few tries, but at some point you'll see sparks and stuff down in there too. That's what this ignition switch is for. And at some point you'll see a little blue flame come up. Once that little blue flame pops up, you continue to hold this button down for, let's say, a few seconds. It just kind of depends. But let's say a few seconds, 10, 20, 30 seconds, and slowly release this button right here, the pilot button, and make sure that your actual flame is still on once you release this button here. Once you've done that, you feel free to actually turn this counterclockwise to the on position. If your pilot's still lit, start turning it even slower, or start turning it counterclockwise. And if you, I don't know if you heard, but there's an audible click. That's allowing gas to go through to the burner assembly. And then you just turn it to your desired temperature. So low, hot, very hot. They're all kind of different as far as like what these settings indicate, like what temperature it is. Low is typically somewhere around like 110, maybe 100, and then you start getting to hot, maybe 115, a little bit hotter, 120, 130, 140, very hot, 150. Don't ever recommend going to 150 degrees. So that's how you would light your pilot and your burner assembly up on this Delta gas control valve. All right, let's go to this other unit. So this is another very common unit that you might see on your water heater. This one actually has that adapter for your flex line in it, so this is kind of what it would look like. Same thing, make sure your gas is on, your flex is connected. And right here, this is going to work very similarly to the other unit. You have your on right here, pilot, and then off right here. You have your ignition switch right here. You're still going to have the same things coming out of the bottom here. And then you have your control knob right here, which adjusts your temperature, which obviously is in a separate spot than your other one. So you want to make sure this is on pilot lighting. You have the little arrow that indicates what setting you're on. Pilot lighting, right? You're going to turn this top knob right here down to pilot. And again, that's the only way you're going to be able to press this button in. Not if you were on, not if you were off, but you have to have it on pilot. So you're going to press this button in, and same thing. You're going to click your ignition switch, all right? Little blue flame comes on, slowly release the pilot, right? And then you'll turn this to on. Now we're on. So still works similar to the other one. And then you're going to turn this to your desired temperature counterclockwise. You got your different settings, low, and you should hear an audible click with this as well. There it goes. And then you just turn it to your desired temperature again. Don't recommend going to very hot. So very similar. Now this one is also similar, but different in certain ways, obviously, which would be the status light indicator. We're a little kind of digital here a little bit. This is a little bit smarter. It does have some smarts behind this cover and everything like that. Have like a control board and everything. So, and then you'll have something plugged into the front here, which again, I won't really get into, but we're just going to cover the basics here. So it works very similarly. Gas in, make sure gas is on. You have your arrow right here that turns to pilot. So you're going to hold that in. That's the only way you can press that button down again. And then you're going to hit your ignition switch, which is down here on the left-hand side. Hit that, look through your sight glass, make sure your pilot is lit. But you're going to hold this button down until you see this thing start to flash a color. Most of the time, it's usually either white or blue on the newer models, which I'll get to that here in a second. But on the newer models are made by a different company named Resideo. So it'll either be blue or like white in color, and it'll flash. Also, this will kind of tell you how many flashes and what the issue may be. So if it's flashing too often, it might be some sort of issue, and this will tell you what that is. But under normal operation, you're just flashing every 3 seconds, I believe it is. It'll just be one flash. So you continue to hold this down, press your ignition switch. Once you get your little blue flame up in that sight glass, you continue to hold this down until this thing flashes blue or white in color, an LED flash. And then you can actually let go of this button right here. Now, before this thing starts flashing, typically you'll hear an audible click. It'll click and then it'll start flashing right here as well. So then you're free to let this go. You can let that go, double check, make sure your flame's still on, and then turn this to your desired temperature and your burner assembly will kick on. right? Again, don't recommend going past very hot. But to touch on this, I believe they've been putting these gas control valves on water heaters. Honeywell, they've had a partnership with water heaters or something. For, I believe, at least the last 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. I've been doing water heaters for quite some time, and I believe it's been, I would say, at least roughly 10 years since I've seen these. But now I believe a company has taken over. I don't know if they're affiliated in any way, but it's a company called Resideo. And so you might see that on your gas control valve because it looks super similar to this Honeywell. There's very slight differences, but it works exactly the same. And that Resideo symbol might be on the upper right-hand corner instead of down here, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere else on here. But these, I think they had a lot of trouble with these actual Honeywell units. And so this other company kind of took over. And again, I'm not sure what the affiliation is, so forgive me, but on more modern heaters or hot water heaters that you're going to see these days, you're going to see a gas valve very similar to this, but it's actually made by Resideo and not Honeywell because of the issues that we were having, or they were having. So that's pretty much it for this video. Again, this is for more common gas control valves that you're going to see on your gas-fired water heaters these days, at least here in Texas, but I'm sure it's for most places, because Rheem and A.O. Smith and State, Lochinvar, a lot of these companies use the same gas control valves, and a lot of times you'll see something very similar to this one these days. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or if you have any comments about any content that you want me to put out, I would love to hear it, and anything is greatly appreciated as far as that goes. So like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.